Well, so far it's been an honour to have been given command of this project for the Imperial Cephalmore Service. We, Isnbeards, have been master artisans for some time, and while I know these towers are not exactly the most visually pleasing thing my family's worked on, well, that ain't the point. When these towers are fully built, they'll be able to get warning of greenskin or beastman invasions from the furthest corners of the Empire all the way to Altdorf in the span of a day. Can you imagine how many folk that might help? It breaks my heart to see some of my kin ready to run at the first obstacle. Now, alright, I admit, I ain't happy about what's going on. My people are vanishing. Something is going on here. I think it's worse than elf mischief, that's for sure. Hopefully these humans can help us before things get worse. Oh, I hope you're watching us now, Grungy. We humble engineers could use your blessing. This is Red Moon Role-Playing. There is a heavy clanking sound as several dwarves manage to get together some pulley chains and a few weights that they do have on them. This is after all a construction site, primarily. And head to a tent to fasten down quite securely one of their brothers. This is all on the advice of Dr. Siegfrieda, who's seeing it happen while she talks to her good friends Heinrich and Kruger outside the tent with this strange stone tower just a few steps away from this campsite. The situation is an odd one. Some dwarves seem to have an issue which they'd like some help with, and you three think you might have some answers to that problem. But the real question is, what are you doing, and what are you going to do in this odd situation you find yourselves in?
Well, we've treated our patient as best we can. I say that knowing full well that if these people are dematerializing or disintegrating or whatever's happening, strapping weights to their limbs to prevent it from happening is unlikely to prevent it. But that said, there aren't many medical treatments to stop someone from disintegrating, maybe balming them in glue. Regardless, I don't have a solution, so the best thing I can do is fall to basic physics. And hopefully that if there's a counterweight, it will prevent whatever's taking them from taking them. It's, again, not expected to work, but it's at least something. That leaves us with this tower that my friends here, the two of you, have already investigated the exterior of it, have you not?
Mm-hmm.
And you found a locked door?
I found a locked door, some kind of puzzle mechanism instead of a lock and key, and that is the exact point where Heinrich's brain went, Siegfried problem, and stopped thinking about it.
Kruger, you would be able to correct Heinrich that there actually was a space for a key, but obviously you don't have that key, but there is a key space around the weird lettered puzzle thingy.
Yes, there was a slot for a key also, and I did attempt to find some way of unlocking it, but I think it will require all of us to put our heads together, if you will, to be able to open, and we probably might also need that key, actually. Do I think that the key will be necessary?
The key would be lovely, but who knows where a key is? And a lot of the time when you pick locks, you don't need keys.
Indeed. But without the key, did it seem doable, or is it just all above what I can comprehend?
It seemed hard, but you haven't actually even started yet, so you don't know. You'd have to give it a go. The only thing is it might take some time. That you don't know. Is it going to take hours? Days? You have no idea until you start.
Why don't we give it a shot and see if we can figure it out? It'll be very interesting to see what's inside. I have to say that I'm quite curious.
Well, I'm not opposed. Please, lead on. I've not seen this tower up close.
All right. I'll begin leading the way towards the tower then, unless Heinrich wants us to stay behind.
No, nothing left for me here. We can proceed.
And so the three of you begin heading towards the tower. As you do, you see a couple of the dwarves look very curious and just start following you. And Angelus, after she has made sure her friend is tied down, is also just following behind you. They all seem quite curious as to what exactly you're doing. And you arrive at the tower, and yes, Siegfrieda, you see what the others have seen. A stone tower, possibly 2 floors, if you had to guess, with the 3rd floor now being this wooden construction, some sort of lantern? A very large lantern on top of said tower. There is some scaffolding and ladders that go up to that part of the tower, but otherwise the stone tower is quite featureless other than this door. Again, you see this strange, intricate lock mechanism with these letters, some letters you can move around, and there's 5 little spots for letters, and they have little pictures, although the pictures are quite faded at this point in time. This was obviously done... You wouldn't say this tower seems like it's hundreds of years old, but it's definitely maybe 50, 60 years old.
It sounds like it's protected with some kind of child's shuffleboard. I'm a bit perplexed at that. I've read plenty of stories about dungeons and vaults that have intricate puzzle mechanisms in the place of secure locks, and things like this appear, but it's often in children's stories. So it's interesting. I'm going to call back to Angelus if she's following to keep an eye on what we're doing. A forewoman, Angelus, a question, if I may.
Aye, sure, Miss Doctor, whatever you need.
Your crew who have unfortunately fallen ill, I say, avoiding the fact that they've disappeared. Which part of this tower were they on? This construction, is that all their work? Did they put that lantern in the top? Did they access this place through the door?
Oh, no, we can't get in the tower. No, all that up there is ours. And she points to the big wooden construction. Oh, yes, no, we're building on top of the tower, you see, because why not?
Well, exactly, yes. Use existing foundations. It makes sense. I'm no architect, but it's the same reason if I were to graft a limb onto you, I would try and do so onto an existing stump.
I'd hope so.
Well, I've heard of some physicians that are a little more experimental. But with that said then, so that lantern up on, the 3rd floor? Mm-hmm. That's one of your pieces of equipment, presumably so that the workers can work in dim light.
Well, no, that's the signal tower. Did you not mention it to your friends? This is a signal tower. Well, it will be a signal tower.
Well, yes, but you put it there.
Oh, yes. The whole lantern, that's dwarven made. It will shine nice and bright, and you can, ideally then see the next tower that's about, 10, 20 miles northwest.
Yes, I've heard of how these signal towers work. It seems a dreadful existence, waiting for a flare to go up. But there we go. So really the only mystery here, if everything on top of the foundations is yours, is what's inside the lowest level.
Oh, aye, we can't get in there. It's a good dwarven puzzle lock. You know how they work, right? It's got a password and also a key. So double protection, really. You put the password in and the key, and door opens. But of course, we haven't tried fiddling with it. We're not thieves. We're not here to salvage. That's different people. We're here to build something. That's what we were paid to do, and that's what we'll do.
My last question, then, if you don't mind, is the materials you use to construct these upper layers, were any of them sourced from the foundations or rubble found around? I know how it is when builders find solid lumps of stone, they don't like to put them to waste.
No. We've brought most of this in, was imported when we first got here. We've chopped a few trees down in the woods, but as you can see, she gestures, there's plenty of wood to go around. We haven't been venturing too far in the forest. We're not stupid. Keep to our camp. Keep safe.
I will, stop my wandering around then and draw Kruger and Heinrich in close. Thank you very much, Angelus. So I was thinking maybe someone has disturbed a tomb or something religious, and become cursed as a result of that. But it sounds like all these poor dwarves have done is try and build something on top of an existing structure, and that's it. But that means we have to assume that if we were to climb on top of it, we would be similarly afflicted. Unless she's hiding something from us. The only thing we can do is try and get in through this door, but I assume you found hind nor hair of the key required.
No, not as of yet. It might be possible to open without the key, provided we can work the mechanism and solve the puzzle connected with it.
You have skills in that regard, don't you? Jimmying open locks and loosening hinges.
I do have some skill with the mechanical aspects of it, I think. The part where I would need a little bit of help is probably on the puzzle, because I don't know where to begin on that. I'll bend down and I'll start looking at this this contraption, this lock mechanism, and see if I can make some kind of sense of, well, where to begin, really.
Well, in that case, I will allow you to initially make an intelligence roll at a -20.
Yeah, then I fail by 3 degrees.
This is complicated. What is this? So there's pictures and there's letters. What do the pictures even mean? Does Siegfrieda know anything about this sort of thing?
I just sort of shake my head and I look to Siegfrieda. Can you make any sense of this?
Can I make any sense of this?
You can make an intelligence test at a +10.
I mean, I know nothing about dwarf culture, but I'll give it a try.
A +10 comes from the fact that you don't think these are dwarven symbols. You think you might even recognize maybe 1 or 2.
No, I'm afraid I fail as well, quite badly. I get an 82 against 47.
So you think you recognize some of these symbols? Like, okay, the first one. A bird. Bird? Bird. What type of bird, though? There are hundreds of types of birds. Okay, what about... Down there's a scythe. Scythe? Wheat chafing? Wheat cutting? Or it could be anything else. There's definitely... You think there must be clues to which letters go where. But this is... You're struggling a little here. Maybe now, Kruger, if you wished, you could try re-rolling. As Siegfrieda kind of maybe mouths these things out to you.
Yeah, I'm just speaking aloud things I don't understand.
I will attempt to do just that then. I will use a point of fortune and reroll. That goes much better. That is a 16.
Ooh, much better indeed. Okay, so Siegfrieda's saying something about clues, and you're looking at that bird. It's a weird bird. It's got its wings spread out quite wide in a certain... Wait a minute. Remember there were some boys back down in Nuln. What were they called again? The Blazing Phoenixes. It was a really stupid name. They had like a tattoo though. It looked like that. Phoenix? What's a phoenix? Fiery bird. Huh. Phoenix. Starts with a P?
Yeah. Well, that's a phoenix, isn't it? P? That could be the first letter, perhaps?
In some languages.
Yeah, you're right about that. It really depends on which language is being used. Well, if it was a P, what will we get from the rest then?
That you don't know. But the question is, are you going to try and move a P in there? You can do that. There are letters of the alphabet of the Reichsspiel alphabet anyway. Something might happen.
I am sure that this will not end well, but my curiosity really does get the best of me here, and a locked door that I'm unable to open, this is not something that I can live with, really. So I'll try and put a P in there and see if that does anything.
As Kruger reaches forward, I would just like to whisper to Siegfrieda, how certain are we that whatever's in there won't make us disappear?
Oh, I think it's almost likely, almost guaranteed that whatever's in there will try. It's unlikely to just be discriminating against dwarven builders. But have hope, friend Heinrich. I slap him on the arm. We have overcome far worse than some disappearing spell, and I dare say we have the fortitude and wisdom to overcome whatever it is that laid ill fortune to these builders. Maybe we'll even recover them.
Sure. Okay. And then I will take one step back as Kruger reaches to put the P into the lock.
And something does indeed happen, Kruger. There's a slight clicking sound. You know that click? Something just moved in the lock. You know that click. Okay. You start looking into the keyhole. You think you can see one of the tumblers has moved ever so slightly. This is amazing, Kruger. Okay, that's how it works. You put letters in, but then the tumblers come out, but you don't have the key, but then you don't need the key. Time to get to work. You can pretend to be the key. That's how lockpicking works. You are going to need to get all your kit out, and this is going to take you some time. But you think you could now start actually working on this lock.
This is good. I saw the tumbler move. This was correct. I'll just get my kit out, and I'll be able to fake that we have the key, so we just need to finish the rest of the puzzle.
Indeed. Siegfrieda, make one more intelligence roll. This time give yourself a plus 30, because, okay, you now know the concept of the puzzle. Come on, this can't be that hard.
Well, on a plus 30 it would have been difficult for me to fail. I roll a 55, nevertheless, against my 83.
Excellent. Okay, so the symbols maybe mean words, and words can be spelled, and there's only so many letters in the alphabet. Okay, you start looking at some of the others, and you start thinking you can recognize a few others. You're not entirely sure what the second one is. It's a very weird symbol, possibly from something astrology related. It's not really your field. But the third one, some wavy lines. It looks a bit innocuous, but this is something actually from your doctoring tutelage. It's kind of the elemental symbol for water. At least some people consider it the elemental symbol for water. Could it be that? W? And then the next one, Earth. W-E. Aha! 2 more letters, you think to yourself. This might help Kruger.
I point these things out, still feeling largely in the dark. I'm not a mathematical puzzle solver by nature, or even a grammatical one. But I give these letters out. So we have a W for water, an E for earth.
Alright.
You start slotting these in, Kruger. They do seem to be making things move. You think in a beneficial way, although sometimes they reset. That's annoying. Still, time to get to work. This is now an extended lockpick test. You're going to succeed. It's just a case of how long it takes you. So start rolling your lockpick skill, and you need to hit 10 success levels. So just start rolling, and every time you roll, just take into account how many times you have rolled. How many rounds, if you will.
The first roll is 3 degrees of success. The second roll is a failure. Then we have another success of 3 degrees. And then we have a failure. A success of 2. We're up to 8 now.
You are, and I will allow you to stop there because I'm also going to say, thanks to your initial investigation, that was 2 success levels automatically. So you've actually succeeded. However, how many rounds was that? 4?
5.
Time passes. Heinrich, you're kind of sitting there waiting for like a terrifying trap to happen, but it doesn't happen. Instead, nothing happens. Kruger, this is infuriating. You keep getting progress, and then it resets, and then you make progress again, it resets. At one point, you realise you've got to do a little bit of a force manoeuvre. You've got to like jam something in there just to stop one of those tumblers moving, and break the lockpick a few times. This takes about 30-40 minutes, and you realise around the 30-40 minute region, the lock started making very loud sounds. Like the more you tampered with it, the more it starts going quite noisy. Still, all the dwarves are watching quite interestedly. Eventually, you manage to force 2 more letters just into position, and it spells out the word power. P-O-W-E-R. And suddenly, the entire door begins to move and grind open. What do?
I will take 1 step back just to marvel at my success, and you will see how I have a very triumphant look on my face as I kind of hold my hands out, sort of pointing to what we have achieved, what I have achieved.
Oh, I give you an applause. I'm impressed.
It's going to be difficult for Heinrich to see the look on your face, standing as far back as he is. 3 or 4 steps at this point. When it started making that noise, I like being corporeal, so this whole disappearing thing, not so much for me. But if it looks like that door is going to open, I would like to draw the black powder pistol and just point it at the opening in case this is a situation where something evil immediately leaps out of the door.
Indeed. And as it grinds open, you are confronted with a horrible, musty dust-like smell as some air kind of just spills out from this building, and you look into darkness.
Well, time to go inside.
Do I have a torch or something as part of my standard issue adventurer's kit?
Of course you do.
Would it be prudent to perhaps light it and then toss it into the darkness before we start stepping into this?
Why not? You light your torch and throw it forwards, revealing the corridor before you.
I was definitely concerned there might have been explosives in there if it was a black powder tower, so I'm super grateful that this choice has not led to ruin, but there's just a corridor. How far back can we see what's going on in there?
Looking forward, again, if you're not stepping in at least, you think you can see stone walls and maybe the outlines of doors to the left and right and straight ahead. And that is all. It's a small little entranceway. That's what it appears to be.
And I'm sorry if we covered this earlier. Do we know the rough dimensions of the tower?
You believe it's a 2-story tower, so if this was 1 floor, there might be a secondary floor above it.
And then, in terms of circumference or what have you, is it like a 10 by 10 tower or larger?
It looks house-shaped, so maybe there's a couple of... If there were rooms, for example, in it, there'd be 3 or 4.
Okay, and then last question, the corridor is level. It's not descending down into the earth or ramping up, yeah?
It is totally leveled, yes. What do you 3 do? The dwarves look around, one of them starts clapping, Angelus leans forward and says to you, Kruger, well done, although, just saying, if that was a proper dwarven lock, you would not have got in. But well done, I guess it was a bit shoddily made.
Oh yeah, it must have been. Well, I'm filled with hubris after this, so I take the lead, I think, moving inside, keeping an eye out for any other kinds of constructions that one might find in a place like this. Puzzles, weird mechanical things. It wouldn't be that strange if there was some very inventive traps in this location.
Indeed, it wouldn't.
I'm going to put my hand out to the dwarves, or up to the dwarves behind us, and say, I very much recommend that you don't follow us in, given what befell your comrades. We don't know that it doesn't just affect dwarves, so I wouldn't risk it even if your curiosity compels you to move forward.
You sure? What if there's something dangerous in there? We can't just leave you.
If that happens, at least one of us will scream, and then I leave it to your consciences whether you run to help.
Oh, we'll come and help you. My grandparents would kill me if someone was... they found out that I left someone to die when I could help.
Well, again, I leave that to you to decide.
All right, well, we'll stay at the door then. And she kind of motions for 2 of the other dwarves to stay at the doors. You notice they pick up their pickaxes and shovels. So at least they have some sort of blunt weaponry.
I'm not going to let Kruger get too far ahead. Heinrich's not going to embarrass himself by appearing cowardly. So I'll be not exactly on his heels, but close.
Indeed. And so you enter, and you are now in this stone corridor. The floor is caked in dust. So much dust you're literally making footprints as you enter. There are cobwebs everywhere. And then there are these doors, 3 wooden doors, with nice iron handles. It's all dark in here apart from that torch you've got on the ground.
I'll look at the doors. Are they in any way marked? Is this a test? Or are they just doors leading to different rooms?
They seem just to be doors, to be perfectly honest. There's no weird markings on them that you can see.
I'll pick the one in the middle then.
As in the one straight ahead?
Yes.
Then you open it. And again, a dark chamber awaits you. Quite a large one, though, and it seems circular, but again, you can't see much more without some sort of light.
I can do the torch trick again.
Yes, please. I motion to Heinrich to catch up, and then we'll have a look at this room together.
Would there be like a sconce on the wall in the hallway somewhere I could put a torch? That way we're not... I would like to have more than one. That way we are not progressing down in a single bubble of light.
There are several sconces on the walls. Unlit, of course, right now, but if you wish to light them, you can. The room will begin illuminating.
Yes, I'll light one in the hall, and then with the torch that I have, the original torch, I'll toss that into the center of this strange round room.
Indeed, and once again you disturb a great deal of dust. You see some spiders scuttling down from a spider web. You don't think anyone's been in here for a very, very long time. At least you don't think so. It's hard to tell. You're making footprints, but there are some areas that don't have any dust in them. Does that mean it's been disturbed recently or not? You're not quite sure. What does get your attention is two things. Number one, there is a staircase at the back, slowly circling upwards, perhaps leading to a second floor. Before you is a polished floor. On the floor is a symbol, a sort of six-sided star shape, kind of just dominating the floor.
Would I recognize that symbol based on my conversation with my erstwhile mentor?
Nothing chaotic about it, no. Maybe magical, maybe astronomical. It doesn't have any immediate significance to you. But again, your knowledge is a bit limited on these things at this point.
Okay, but it doesn't appear to be, for example, the sigil of the house that sponsored this tower in ye olden days, or anything like that. It's clearly some kind of, like you said, arcane.
Yes, exactly. Arcane or astrological kind of thing, you think to yourself. It's a star. Stars are things in the sky, right?
Makes sense to me. That's about all I know about stars, so excellent.
There's also a small little circle right in the middle of the star as you go forward, like a little black polished bit of onyx or something, just in the middle, like a little disc shape almost.
Before we start experimenting with this sigil or puzzle or heading upstairs, do we want to check the other two rooms?
I think that's a good idea, yeah. Let's see what we have down here. Perhaps there's treasure.
There could be, and we just need to be cautious that and do excuse my superstition. I don't tend to be superstitious, but I do believe that some curses have weight. But I'm quite content for the two of you to lead on, and I'll just be here in case anyone needs stitching up, should something go wrong.
You also notice there's a door straight ahead again, leading to another room, in this main room, so you could backtrack and go through the left or right door, or keep going. And of course there is that staircase going upwards.
Well, Kruger, do you have a preference between left and right?
Let's go left.
I think you stepped through the first threshold. I suppose it's my turn to put myself at risk,
Be my guest.
And so I shall, taking the left door off of that first corridor.
You backtrack a little, and you head for the left. You find yourselves in a circular chamber, although not a complete circle. This is obviously built around that central circular chamber, so it's kind of like a half-circle shape, leading around the tower structure. This room is full of large wooden tables and chests, and on the tables are various weird bottles, beakers, strange glass shapes, almost like tubes, and it's on all the tables. Again, the room is covered in dust and grime.
Some kind of laboratory?
I think my only experience with this kind of thing is the 4 or 5 sentences that Siegfrieda has uttered aloud that I've remembered, so given the implements and stuff, this is decidedly outside of my wheelhouse. So yes, I'll whistle back to Siegfrieda and explain what I'm seeing, expecting her to come charging quite quickly.
I will. There's a pace to my footsteps.
Then you see what they're seeing, Siegfrieda. And of course, to you it's obvious that this is some sort of study room.
Oh, this is obviously a study room of some kind.
Studying what?
Well, that is the question. Is there anything here that is still locked under, like, magnification apparatus, or are there any intact books on shelves or vials of liquid or anything like that, or is it all in ruin?
It is rather ruined, but you begin looking around. Some of the boxes are empty. The shelves... Oh, you think these once contained herbs, but several of them have long turned to dust. There is a chalkboard in a corner. Someone's been doing math, or algebra, or astronomy. There's, you see a little circle with little dots on it. Isn't that orbits? Again, you're not an astronomer, but it was covered a little bit in your basic education.
I point all of this out, so some kind of astronomy. It wouldn't actually be that unsurprising, I say, picking through some of that. If this were a tower before it was reduced to its foundations, some people study the stars from as high a point as they can construct themselves, when a perfectly good mountain would do. But I'm, again, not an expert on these things. I suppose we're far enough out in the wilderness that firelight from lanterns and so on wouldn't interfere with your view of the night sky. Or maybe this is just the perfect position to see the stars in a certain alignment. But my knowledge of things beyond the body is... well, it wanes the further away you get from the internal organs.
You'd mentioned chests. Are there any that are still closed, locked, that might have something inside that hasn't been ravaged by time?
No, they all seem to have been opened. But you do notice, just as you start looking through the chests, that there is one last shelf, and there is actually a book on it. Just one.
I will assume that Siegfrieda couldn't see it because it was on one of the taller shelves, so I will pluck it off of its perch and then hand it down to her.
And so, Siegfrieda, you are handed a book.
Oh, good.
It's a book on anatomy.
Oh, good.
And as you read it, it's a little bit of it's in classic, which you can't really read, but there is some basic pictures, and okay, it's a book on anatomy. It's got diagrams of the heart, the liver, kidneys, brain.
Does it, is it written in the common language, or...?
No, it's written in classical.
So, from what little I can glean, are some of the assumptions incorrect, or is this quite an advanced book for its time period?
For its time period, quite advanced. Again, classic is still used by quite a lot of people, especially academics who want to show off.
Yeah, mostly pretentious religious types.
Well, on that note, I had to study a little bit of classical to read the dueling manuals. Can I see if I can pluck out any important words?
I'm more than happy to pass the book to you, if you show an interest in educating yourself for once.
You certainly can. There's something here about cardiovascular blood flow. Okay. There's something here about apparently that the tumours are located in the brain. Okay. The eyes, windows to the soul. Okay. Wow, there's lots of stuff in here about the body and science.
It's very much like a kindergartner reading through a book. I can pronounce the words, but there is absolutely no comprehension. I'm just hoping that some of the translation rings one of Siegfrieda's bells.
Well, it certainly would. It's a book on anatomy, and quite an advanced one. Again, there's a little bit of superstition in there, but of course there is. It's an old book, and medical science is still in its infancy.
Well, I will more than happily keep the book. If there's no kind of obvious gilding, if it basically just looks like an anatomy book, you never know, I might just be able to pull the decent pages out of it and toss the rest into the canal. But it's a find, isn't it? What does that tell us? Someone was using this tower. There's astronomy equipment, you said.
Yes.
And anatomy books. That's a interesting mix.
I can't see the connections, save that those are both things that bored nobles study instead of doing manual work.
I think you may be onto something there. That's exactly the kind of thing that nobles with a little too much money and a little too much eccentricity will do to make themselves experts. They can arrive at their tavern and start boasting about their finding. There are some certainly ancient anatomists who believed that cycles in the body conformed to where the stars happen to be in the night sky, but that school of thought was largely done away with centuries ago. For obvious reasons. Nothing that goes on in the sky has any effect on what happens on land. Let alone inside our bodies. But either way, it's still... If it's a classic anatomy text, once we get it out into daylight, I might find that it's got some maker's mark on it and it turns out to be a collector's item.
It may well indeed. Kruger, what are you doing? Again, they seem to have found most of the things in this room. The only thing they haven't investigated now is that other door.
Indeed. I have been looking at them, studying the contents of this room, and not finding any of it particularly interesting myself. I have started to get sort of pulled towards that other door, wanting to see if perhaps that's the one that will be hiding all the jewelry and valuables, which surely must be here, especially if it's a noble.
Certainly. Do you open that door?
Yes.
Then, once again, darkness awaits you. But you can see just a little from the lights that you're now lighting as you obviously progress through this place. Shelves. Big bookshelves. There's a big, massive bookshelf, like 5 steps in front of you, and the room then continues. But that's the first thing you see as you enter this room. Again, it's very dark, and you hear a bit of a creaking sound as you push open the door.
I try to remain as cautious as I can be if I hear creaking. Again, I am still not completely convinced that this place isn't littered with traps, and we just been lucky. That's why we haven't triggered any of them.
Then cautious you are. What do? You don't step in, you just stand there in the doorway?
No, I will definitely step in. I need to find the jewelry.
Then you step in. What do you do about the light? Are you going to, again, try and request some torch and try lighting the room a little? This is quite a big room, and it curves around. Obviously, the circular nature of the tower, so you can't quite see directly ahead of you, but you can see other giant bookshelves. And there are quite a lot of books on them. Not as many as you'd expect. There's big empty gaps, but there are definitely lots and lots of books on these bookshelves.
I will, I'll call for Heinrich. Heinrich, you bring the light over here? See what's in this room. Perhaps it'll be more exciting than this, well, noble stuff that you found in the other one.
Can't imagine that the noble installed a interesting things parlor in the tower, but I'm happy to be surprised. So, like a dutiful golden retriever, I shall trot along, torch in hand.
And so you light the room and you begin to see more of this large circular area full of bookshelves. You can only see so much at a time. There's still a lot of darkness ahead of you. The bookshelves are sort of not on the walls, but right in front of you. They're big wooden shelving units that are sort of placed equal distance from each other. There's nothing on the actual walls. Again, as you enter, Heinrich, you feel a little nervous. There's a lot of corners in this room, things you can't see until you go further, and again, there's this dust in the air.
Scanning the spines of the texts, is this also in Classic?
This is a collection of all languages. You see some Reichsspiel, you see some Classic, you see a language you don't even know, and there's lots and lots of books.
The things that I can identify, are we still on an anatomical or astronomical theme?
Ooh, you're gonna need to roll me an intelligence roll for that.
Okay, so I have a 27 intelligence. I've rolled a 25.
So, okay, what's this book? A guide to something you can't read. Okay, what about this one? That's in Reichsspiel. You know even less of that. Alphodicus, Encyclopedio, okay, local herbology, there's lots of books, and they're about things, Heinrich. Sciencey things.
Alright, well, that satisfies my question. I'll let Siegfrieda do the organizing and look for the card catalog, but so long as nothing leaps out as demonology and how to make people disappear, then that's kind of the extent of my interest on that. I will continue moving forward, assuming Kruger is also on board, and just kind of clear the room corner by corner, making sure there's nothing lurking, and maybe we'll stumble into something else along the way.
Of course you do, Heinrich. So Heinrich steps forward. Siegfrieda, what are you doing? You notice Heinrich sort of stepping forward, scouting the room. Kruger's behind him. You're still not even in the room. What do you do?
Well, I follow them in. I'm not going to hang around by myself, especially when the light disappears. So this place is increasingly looking like an out-of-the-way library. Or a place for some kind of magician or expert or academic to study.
That's a pretty good guess on your part. Again, you are a bit better at reading the book titles. Yep, this is a library. There's books on everything in here, mainly of an academic nature. To really delve into them, you'd have to start actually picking books up and reading them, which obviously would take some time, but just looking at the titles, yes, this is definitely a library, and some of these books could have some worth.
And I assume that the nature of these books is varied, then?
Yes. Largely academic, but there is a mixture of history, science, natural law.
Yeah. Okay. I'm having a look at some of these titles. Is there anything recognisable to me, or are they all well-known classics? Is there anything obscure here?
To evaluate the worth of these books and see if they're useful, you do have the evaluate skills, so please roll me an evaluate test.
Okay. So I get a 19 against my evaluate of 53.
You recognise several titles. This is an old almanac. That's Imperial History, an edition out of date, of course, by about 50, 60 years, but still quite useful.
That's good. If there's what may have been an up-to-date history book, it allows us to date the construction of this place, or at least one of the last possible dates it might have been inhabited.
Indeed. You find about 8 titles you recognise, and you think if you were to sell them all, it would probably be worth about 7 gold crowns?
Oh, well, that's a lot of books to carry, though. But then again, we have a barge.
That is true. And again, books are books, you know that. Books are a valuable commodity in this world.
Well, I expressed this to my friends. So there's about 7 gold crowns worth of literature here. Some of it academic, most of it dated. The only thing that's holding me back from suggesting we pull the entire library out is we know that the dwarves who were just on top of this place ended up disappearing. So far, we've not found anything in here to indicate that there's a threat, a bad atmosphere, none of us are feeling unwell, nothing like that.
Exactly. Although you do also notice as you touch one of the books, it does begin to crumble a little. Yes, there's a whole bookshelf that there's some rot set in there, so you think some of the library is probably damaged, which is a shame. Heinrich, then, please roll a perception check.
Oh, certainly. A 12, that is going to be under 44, so 3 success levels?
Wonderful. And so you begin moving around, looking at the top of the bookshelves. They're very tall. You think you could climb one if you wanted to, not that you would, but that's how big they are. It's a shame that some of them are empty as well. That's odd. Why is there a bunch of books that aren't here? Maybe someone took some with them before they left this place, if some people were here. God knows how long ago. Again, it's not the sort of age that says hundreds of years. It's more the dust of, decades. Like maybe 20, 30, 40 years. And it says you're thinking that you turn a corner and just see in a small little alcove a person standing.
I'm sorry, an actual person?
They appear to be humanoid as your torch shines over them. 2 arms, 2 legs. They're facing away from you.
I was not prepared for this. So, I'm imagining Heinrich walking through the library with a torch in one hand and then the rapier in another. When, I turn this corner and see the person, I'm not trying to be sneaky. I also expect us to be alone, so I expect, I will meet this person with a startled, not quite a yelp, that would be undignified, but a noise of surprise, taking one step back, falling just by reflex into a guard position, and then calling out, "You there!"
The being begins to turn very slowly. They're dressed in rags, like there's a couple of rags on their upper body and some ragged trousers. As they turn to face you, you see their eyes, hollow, white, their mouth full of crooked teeth, their skin pale and rotting, grey almost, and there's something around their neck as well. It's a key of some kind, like a metal key, and then the being sort of opens its mouth and just goes and begins to advance upon you, stretching its arms out to reach for you. Battle has begun. Can everyone give me their initiatives, please?
Alright, I have a 39.
My value is 43.
My actual initiative value is 37.
And so, a battle begins. Kruger, you hear up ahead Heinrich let out a little gasp, and then you see a figure is slowly, very slowly, approaching him with arms outstretched. Some sort of person, but there's something very, very wrong with this person. What do you do? It is your turn.
I'll try and help my friend, of course. I have my crossbow, so I'll try and ready it and prepare to fire off a bolt.
Then it doesn't take too long to ready it. You hear a satisfying click. It is ready to fire.
Before it gets to Heinrich, I will then fire at this being. Clearly, it's threatening him.
Certainly. Roll your ranged crossbow skill.
That is not very good, so I will use another point of fortune. Much better. That's 3 degrees of success. 29.
Wonderful. 9, 10, 11, so that's 12 damage. You aim and you fire your crossbow bolts. You hear a satisfying crunching sound as you shoot this thing straight in the head. Literally, straight in the head. And it kind of sways a little. And then it staggers forwards, but it doesn't quite go down, which is very alarming because it should be dead. Why isn't it dead? This is concerning, but it definitely has been surely wounded significantly.
I certainly hope so. I will immediately begin working on reloading and putting another bolt there, but that's going to take a while.
It certainly will. Heinrich, your turn. Whatever this thing is, it's suddenly been shot straight in the head, and it's certainly staggering, kind of off balance quite a lot, but still not quite going down. What do you do?
Well, see, the problem is that we shot it with a crossbow bolt, and I think Siegfrieda will appreciate the scientific approach I'm going to take. I'm going to conduct an experiment and see what happens if you shoot it with something else. So I'll drop the torch to my feet, and then with that same motion, shoot it with the pistol.
Certainly. We make a ranged gunpowder roll.
Oh, that's... I want to take a picture of this so you know that it's true, but I have rolled an 11.
You aim, you fire, and the being's head explodes. Completely and utterly. For a moment, your bravado is shocked because it still keeps moving forwards. It keeps moving forwards. It takes a couple more steps, and its hand actually almost reaches you. And then suddenly, it kind of convulses and just falls to the ground. Just in time for you to notice, to your right, a similar being is beginning to advance upon you.
I'm not going to bother reloading this pistol. I'll go back to the sword.
Indeed. Siegfrieda, your turn. Suddenly, crossbow bolts and pistols are going off.
Yeah. Well, this isn't what anybody wanted. I think it's fair to say. I need to make an assessment. These shadowed figures that are shambling toward us, do they look in an advanced state of decomposition, relatively fresh? Do they look alive?
They definitely don't look alive. They definitely look like cadavers. They definitely look like the sort of cadaver that you'd maybe see in a grave site, like 50, 40 years old. Like, they've still got a bit of flesh on the bone.
But very, very close to the bone. Thin skin, sunken eyes, disappeared, or things like that. Are they human, or were they human, or is it a mixture of humans, dwarves, other things?
The one that you just saw looked human, although you can't really assess him anymore because he's no longer got a head. The one in the darkness does seem a similar size, yes?
Well, are they making any kind of moaning? Are they talking? Are they screaming? Is it just air escaping from their lungs, or are they utterly silent?
It seems to be a moaning sound, implying it's coming from their lungs, but there are no words being spoken, just a sort of...
And final question is, where is this thing emerging from exactly? Is it just from one of the shadows in this library?
This one is coming from the right. So if the first one came from the left of the wall, this one seems to be coming from the right, around the bookshelves.
Okay, well, if it's coming from around a bookshelf can be pulled on top of it, I think.
Or pushed onto it, yes.
Yep, whichever is easiest for me, basically, because it will still be better than me trying to stab it.
Is that what you'd like to try and do? Run? You can just run. You'd reach Kruger's side, and you could try and push down the big bookshelf, although it is a big, heavy-looking bookshelf.
Sometimes you just need a little bit of weight at the right point to topple the largest giant, so let's give it a try. I will run for Kruger's protection while giving this bookshelf a hefty shove with my shoulder.
Indeed. Please roll a strength check or a strength athletics check.
That's a failure. I'm going to spend one of my fortune. I've not spent any this turn, or this session. That's still a failure.
You run forward and you barge straight into this bookshelf, and it is really very, very heavy. You do not injure yourself, but you kind of find yourself looking at it in annoyance, and then you push. It's not going anywhere. It's a really heavy bookcase.
Well, it was a good try. I will rush to Kruger's side then.
And as this happens, the figure begins moving forwards, and it reaches you, Heinrich. You take a step back, though. It's awfully slow. Even this one, it's moving in a very shambling way. Its eyes don't even seem to really see you. It is now within your range, and it definitely will harm you next round, but it's only just got to you this round. At this point, could you, Heinrich, make a perception roll at a -10?
I can try it. I won't make it. Just a couple points over.
How much by? What was your number?
52 above 44.
Not quite good enough, I'm afraid. You kind of, just as you're seeing this creature approaching, think you hear something directly above you. But you're a bit distracted, so you don't really pay attention to it.
No, I had just a little bit of a conversation with my mentor friend. Now I'm finally seeing it. My attention is, I'm not only because of the physical threat, but also just the curiosity zeroed in on this thing in front of me. The rest of the world doesn't really exist right now.
And so the second round begins. Kruger, it's your turn. Remember, you do have advantage. Got one advantage. So everything's at +10. That includes a reload check. Would you like to reload your crossbow?
I must do that, yes, if I am to have any hope of taking down this other foe.
Indeed. Then please roll a range skill check.
That is a 13. So that is several degrees of success.
It certainly is. You lock and load. Your crossbow is ready for its next attack.
That's all I do.
And then something unexpected happens. You're looking forwards at the slow-moving person about to attack Heinrich. And suddenly you see something above Heinrich and Siegfrieda. There is something on the bookshelf, some sort of humanoid form, and it leaps down upon Heinrich. Heinrich, unfortunately, you are surprised. You didn't notice this being. But one thing's for sure, this is moving very differently from these other foes, whatever this thing is.
Do I even get a sense of what it looks like as it falls upon me, or...?
It's quite large, quite humanoid, but a lot more brawny than these things.
This is going to hurt.
12 damage, but do detract from that your toughness bonus and your armor.
Praise be to Sigmar, I am armored in the body, so that removes 5, which means I take 7 damage?
Yes, 7 wounds as this thing leaps down and jumps onto you. Luckily, you are able to push it off and get back to your feet, but you were not expecting this. Where's the damage come from? You look to your side. It stabbed you. It has stabbed you with some sort of boning knife. And you see the creature before you. It is a hideous humanoid being, but it is not rotting the same way the other things are rotting. It has bones kind of inserted into its flesh. It's quite brawny as well, but its arms and legs are also very skinny. It's a rather strange creature, and it screams at you with a hideously large mouth full of sharp teeth and a horrible purple tongue. And it just screeches at all three of you as you encounter this new, horrifying foe deep in this tower.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the legendary campaign The Enemy Within for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, published by Cubicle 7. In the second part of the series, we are tackling Book 2, Death on the Reich. Joining us as players in this series are none other than Aaron Hammonds from Queen's Court Games and our dear friend Matthew Dawkins. The music was made by Flowers for Body Snatchers, Wordclock, Metatron Omega, Aegersonus, Apocryphus, Halgrath, and Northumbria, featuring a number of collaborations with other artists, and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient for your gaming table. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, David, Julián, Camilla, Bob Lange, Julián, Cameron, Antxon, and Graham Barey for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult of Divinity Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember, Skaven are definitely not real.